Hi, my name is cmcgettigan, and I'm going to be doing my inquiry question. My inquiry question came from a visit that I was doing in a 5th grade classroom where I was modeling how to confer with students while they were reading independently. I was talking to a boy and he had no idea what he was reading. So we had a conversation and we talked about what he liked when he was younger and what he thought he needed help with. And basically what we came down to was he really missed the read alouds. And I did notice that as I was visiting classrooms that many teachers they stop reading aloud to kids. And I feel that that's so important because it shows modeling with fluency and vocabulary, and it teaches them what good readers do. So I decided that when we had to do this inquiry question that, maybe we shouldn't let go of that practice. Maybe we need to have that in the classrooms. So I decided to go to all the 5th grades and say, basically, give me your lowest student. And it ended up being 4 boys. They are struggling they got low scores on the NJ Ask, their NWEA scores, which is a test that we take on computers 3 times a year. They were considerably lower than the rest of the grade level. So I decided to make a group that met 3 times a week for a couple months for 45 minutes. They were required to read with me and read at home each night. And our reading would carry over into from what we learned that day. So the purpose is basically to strengthen their overall literacy and focus on building vocabulary and giving them strategies that when they read a text, no matter what it is, because they don't always have choice, that they have some strategies to attack it. We want to strengthen their overall literacy and both with literature and informational text. And our goal is to raise them to at least a 5th grade level, which is the color orange in our arc, and to see an improvement on their NWEA scores. So the objective will be that the kids can actively read with a purpose, regardless of the type of text that they have in front of them. So basically we formed the group and I called the kids down here and I had a bunch of books ready for them to choose because I also learned from my article that, and I already kind of knew this, but it was interesting to read here that kids need to be motivated to read. And if you ask them about their reading in class, they tend to think that they're not good readers, but they do actually read a lot more than we think they do. Teachers seem to not consider what kids consider reading as appropriate. They read on the internet all the time, they read magazines, they read texts, they read on Facebook, they read, in all these multiliteracies, and that is reading. So I'm thinking also maybe we should start putting some of that in. We had a bunch of books in front of us and we looked at them and we ended up with the read aloud. They chose this as their read aloud, Bridge to Terabithia. And I checked with their teachers if this was okay, and they said fine. And this is like a 5th, 6th grade reading level according to ARC. And they're focusing on 5.2, which is read to determine a theme in detail, and from details in a text include how characters respond to challenges, and then summarize the text. So this was a perfect book for that because that's what they were working on. So basically what we did was I started reading this to them and modeling all of those things that good readers do. And I also gave them some focus to go back and look into the book and find text evidence to support it. So in the first chapter, I did it all to them. I read the whole chapter aloud, and I said they were going to introduce the main character, Jessie, and we had to I just read it to them the first time, and then we read it again to model close reading, and we wanted to find spots where it said what Jessie was like. These sticky notes are not sticking anymore because it's been a couple weeks. So we did that one. We did that together. Then the next chapter I read to them, and I said, why don't you stop and jot what you noticed? And I noticed that their stop and jots were not that effective. So we went over places worth stopping and jotting. I found this on the internet. We went over everything that we thought would be good to stop and jot. And then we also went over when it's not good to stop and jot. If I'm just telling them to stop and jot and write any old thing down, you're just forcing yourself to think of something because your teacher wants you to do it. So I said, you're reading to understand, so it has to make sense. So we talked about all of these different reasons, when you have a prediction with evidence, if you disagree or it's not your opinion, or you didn't think it should happen that way. If I learned something new about my character, if my character's action was unusual, the text is begging me to write something about it. I don't know, you just feel the overwhelming need to take notice of something. When something is confusing me, or you may have a question, when something really important happens, or when you see a pattern start to develop in your story, you can keep track of that too. So we talked about all those things. I guided their thinking, but we talked about different things that would make sense and wouldn't. So what I did was I started modeling the stop and jots because they got a little crazy with it. So we just took a step back. We started tracking Jesse, what he was like, and one of the kids says that he misses his dad, and his dad still lives there. So we talked about why, and we went back and found evidence, and they were really getting into it. Then as I required them to do it on their own, in their own reading, I still noticed their stop and jots on their own weren't as appropriate. So we made a rubric, and we talked about the different levels of their stop and jots. We talked about just writing that you notice something, just writing that you notice with a reason, that could be a 2, writing what you notice and citing some evidence from the text, that would be a 3, and then if you start to notice a pattern, that might be a 4. So we talked about putting our sticky notes on here where we really think they went, and they're actually very good at telling me where mine go because I made different levels of them, and actually telling me what to add to move them forward. So I said if they can tell me what to do, then they should be able to do it on their own. So we're working hard on this, and they seem to really enjoy it. Okay, so from there they have to read on their own too, and they have their own books, and I meet with them and I confer, and we talk about what's going on in the book, and the kids tend to keep reading through it and not stopping. So we talked about stopping at the end of every page and in your brain going through what's going on in that story, and then I'm modeling that too. And then I told them we'll move to every couple pages, and then once you get really good at that, we'll move to every chapter. You just be able to summarize it, because in their standard, they do have to summarize text, so we're also practicing that. So I got some articles, and they're all interesting to the kids. They're choosing them, and we got on newsella.com, which is great for articles, and you can choose the levels. And I'm going to be doing this with them. It's telling kids that you definitely, with some articles and some reading, are going to have to read it several times and persevere through it, and the levels that you have to go through to comprehend what's, text that's too hard. So my plan is to teach them to read it once through and talk to a partner about what they think it's about. Second time, read with a pencil. Maybe highlight unknown words. Write a question, any questions that you have. Maybe write the question in the margin, just write a question mark. If you're trying to answer something, evidence to your main idea or evidence to a question, you can put a question mark there, an exclamation point there. And then I also am going to teach them how to use a pencil, underline the main idea, whatever it is that you're trying to, you can write meanings for words, you can write questions that you have, you can respond, whatever. So we're going to do a lot of practice with that too. This was another thing